There has been a ton of talk about Lugia and its dominance in the Japanese meta, and a lot of people are, I don't know if they're concerned that Lugia is going to have that here, but it's definitely popping up as one of the best decks around. Hey, Nick from 9card TCG, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Lugia, and it's going to be all about Lugia, let's be honest, and or some of the ways we can counter Lugia, because for the foreseeable future, right, until Scarlet and Violet comes out, Silver Tempest is our last official main Sword and Shield set. We're going to get a special set in January, but we don't really care about that. Probably just mostly reprints, if not exclusively reprints. So really, until Scarlet and Violet comes out, it's Silver Tempest mode. So Lugia is going to be the big deck that we have to be able to prepare for and know how to beat. And so we're just going to kind of run through some of the ways that you can counter Lugia. It's either play Lugia or counter Lugia. And so we'll get into it. But before we do, if you haven't already, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff tells YouTube this is a good channel and other people should watch it. Now, before we get into the counters, we have to talk about what Lugia does. And Lugia V-Star is a 280 health Pokemon that does 220 damage for 4 energies with the Storm Dive attack, and we're going to talk about that Storm Dive attack a little bit more when we get to the counters. It also has an ability for the V-Star power, Assemble Star. Once during your turn, you can take 2 colorless Pokemon from your discard that do not have a rule box and put them onto your bench. The most common target is going to be the Archeops from Silver Tempest. Archeops Primal Turbo lets you search your deck for 2 special energies and attach them to one of your Pokemon. Really, really good ability. And the fact that we can get 2 means we can get 4 special energies from the deck and accelerate them to 1 or 2 of our Pokemon in play. Absolutely incredible. It does not say it has to be 2 bench Pokemon. It doesn't have to be Pokemon V. It doesn't have to be colorless Pokemon. Any Pokemon we have in play, we can accelerate special energies to. So once we get Lugia up and running, there's not a ton that can, I don't want to say there's not a ton that can be done, but really the biggest thing for Lugia is getting a Lugia turn 1 and then using something like Assemble Star. So let's talk about some of the counters. The first one, Path to the Peak. If we can stop Lugia from using Assemble Star, there's really no way for our opponent to get those Archeops into the discard. Another good thing is Temple of Sinnoh, because Temple of Sinnoh turns all special energies into colorless energies that have no extra effect. However, the problem with both of these is, one, that if Lugia decks bump Path just for a turn so they can use Assemble Star, and that's kind of really all they need, and now they can get the Archeops, and Archeops is not affected by Path to the Peak, so it doesn't really matter too much. Also, Temple of Sinnoh, while a good idea, it doesn't matter too much, because Lugia attacks for 4 colorless energies, so yes, it takes away the effects, but Archeops can get us 4 special energies once they're in play, so you know, maybe it could stall for a turn or 2. I don't anticipate it being very, very long. Also, Lugia's Storm Dive attack, we didn't talk about what it does. It does 220 damage, sure, but it also lets you discard a stadium in play if you want, which means if your opponent plays down Temple of Sinnoh, now your special energies don't do anything except provide colorless energies. Cool. Well, it's not really the biggest answer, because we can, as long as we have 4 energies on this thing, we can just attack with Storm Dive and then get rid of the the Temple of Sinnoh, or even the Path to the Peak, whatever, and now we're okay. So now on our opponent's turn, unless they're able to play another Temple of Sinnoh, we're going to have access to V-Guard energy protecting us from V Pokemon attacks, and then when we attack the following turn, we're going to have access to something like powerful colorless energy, double turbo energy, all that kind of stuff. So unless you're spamming Temple of Sinnohs left and right, Path to the Peaks left and right, I mean, it's really then not as effective as you might want them to be. So those are really our big stadium counters, but what about some Pokemon, right? What are some Pokemon that we could play to counter Lugia? Well, the first one is Beedrill. Beedrill has an attack persisting for just a single grass energy that lets you completely instantly knock out your opponent's active Pokemon if they have any special energies attached. Okay, that's a really good idea, but getting Beedrill out requires almost exclusively the use of Single Strike Mustard. And Single Strike Mustard has a couple of requirements that make it a little bit difficult to make this happen consistently and frequently. Can we pair this with Arceus, Inteleon, Beedrill, make that a deck that can absolutely make a comeback? For sure. But does Arceus Beedrill have a good enough meta share, like good enough meta matchup to really be worth playing unless Lugia is completely everywhere? I don't know. Yes, the Beedrill can handle Mew, it can handle Regis, but how much can it handle those things? I don't really know, especially Regis, because you're going to get knocked out by the Regis, and then you have to, still have Arceus to do it. It's best, honestly, it's best for Mew and Palkia, but it doesn't really help a ton against something like Palkia Kyurem, Palkia Inteleon. It might not help as much as you want against Regis because they are a single prize deck. So yeah, you can use Beedrill to help offset the prize trade a little bit, but I mean, for the most part, that Beedrill is going to get KO'd. So Beedrill, and the reason why Beedrill doesn't help with Palkia Kyurem, by the way, is because yes, they do play Wash Energy, but Wash Energy prevents effects from Pokemon attacks, so you can't even persisting a Kyurem with a Wash Energy on it. You can't persisting a Mewtwo V Union because of its ability. And then if Beedrill becomes super popular, all they have to start doing in Lugia decks is start playing something like Big Parasol, and Big Parasol prevents effects from attacks, and now it becomes an extra thing that Beedrill decks need to have. They have to get the Beedrill out, they have to get the energy, and now they have to have the Tool Jammer, Scrapper, or Lost Vacuum, something to deal with the Big Parasol. But it's a very easy fix for the most part. Another Pokemon that can be used to pretty good efficiency or efficacy against Lugia is Kyurem, because Kyurem will be able to take some one-shots. Even with V-Guard energy, Lugia is going to have 310 health. Kyurem can very easily do that, so Palkia Kyurem, being a very popular deck, is actually a good answer for something like Lugia, so that's something to keep in mind. You do have to worry about the amazing rare Yveltals that will come in and one-shot your Palkia, your Kyurems. So now, you do all this work to knock out a Lugia, and they're just going to get knocked out in return by an amazing rare Yveltal. That doesn't feel very good, and these decks often run something like amazing rare Charizards and Claras. So yeah, you can knock out a Lugia, but then they're going to offer up a couple of single prize after. So really challenging, and if they manage their bench space well, you might not have a ton of great boss targets. Often Palkia Kyurem decks are going to be using, say, Melanie and Irida to keep their Kyurems able to do a lot of damage. So some stuff to keep in mind. Palkia itself, Palkia Inteleon, can take out a Lugia with a V-Guard energy if both players have all Pokemon in play, completely full benches, and they have a choice belt, and they hit with a quick shooting or Zigzagoon, scoop up next Zigzagoon. So they gotta get that extra 20 damage in there with the use of like quick shooting or double Zigzagoon ping in order to take a one shot on a Lugia V with a V-Guard energy. Or play Temple of Sinnoh and then get the damage, take the knockout. And the last Pokemon we're gonna, specific Pokemon we're gonna talk about is Galarian Weezing with the neutralizing gas ability, because while that's in the active, none of your opponent's Pokemon have abilities, which means no Star Assemble, no Archeops, no Lumineon, no Pumpkaboo, no nothing, which is really, no Charizard, by the way, as well. There's a ton of value in Galarian Weezing against Lugia. But if your opponent's just going to attach 2 DTEs to, say, a Lugia, they're able to knock out that Weezing pretty easily, so you're going to have multiple Weezings. One of the things that makes this so challenging is being able to deal with everything else, right? You have to be able to deal with Lugia, but also Mew is a deck, and Palkia is a deck, and those are honestly like the big three. Are occasionally Arceus, but like Lawstone Giratina is a deck, which is also incidentally another card that can kind of deal with Lugia pretty easily. You can hit 310, 280 plus Choice Belt pretty easily. You can Cramorant pretty easily and start to chip away. You can start Requiem, and a lot of things that Giratina can do. But forget that one. The very last thing that we're going to talk about is, of course, just the general lightning attackers, whether that's Raikou V, that could be Vikavolt, and you can add some item lock in there, Regielekis, all that kind of stuff with like the VMAX. There are just a good amount of lightning attackers around, although none of them are particularly great. Regieleki VMAX does let your Vikavolt Vs do increased damage while item locking your opponent. So you get Regieleki VMAX in play, and you get like some of the Zapdos from Pokemon Go in play. You could be hitting for a ton of damage with something like a Vikavolt. Item lock your opponent, make it hard for them to discard those Archeops, make it hard for them to Ultra Ball, Evolution Incense, all that kind of stuff to get the Lugia V-Star into play. There's a lot of things that you can do, but they do play a pretty high support account in the form of Marnie Research, Serenas, so they can easily Serena away a couple of Archeops or research away an entire hand with Archeops and then draw into a Lugia V-Star. So that's not always the best answer, but it does make it a little bit more challenging. And Dunsparce is a card. Dunsparce removes weakness from all colorless Pokemon, regardless of what that weakness is. So if you have an Arceus V-Star and a Lugia V-Star, they have different weaknesses. One's fighting and one is lightning. But a Dunsparce removes all weaknesses from colorless Pokemon. So no more fighting weakness, no more lightning weakness, you are set. So given all this, I don't really know what the best answer for something like Lugia is, what the best counter is. Archeops is seeming to be it's an extremely good card, and Lugia has a ton of tools that can be used for it. Any Pokemon that would want to use special energy can get kind of just slapped into this deck, similar to like an Arceus deck. You can put anything you want in this thing and just make it work. So I don't know what the best counter, I don't know if there even is just a counter all type of thing, right? It's something that can counter Lugia, but also handle Mew, and Palkia. Those are the three decks that we kind of have to deal with at the moment. So if you have a good answer, let me know in the comments below. But I just wanted to throw some ideas out there. Maybe that'll spark someone to create something really cool, something I haven't thought of. And I want to hear from you. So that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, leave a, tell me what you're thinking about Lugia and Silver Tempest as a whole. But yes, that's going to do it. And I will see you next time.